Thank you for staying with us here on Morning Live. Now, millions of rands in refunds have been paid to taxpayers after the intervention of the Tax Ombudsman. The office released its annual report yesterday, which gives clear details about the more than 4,000 complaints that were lodged against the South African Revenue Service. And some of the grievances are related to dispute resolution, penalties, as well as fraud investigations. So to discuss this further, we're joined now by the South African Tax Ombudsman, Judge Bernard Ngoepe, and he joins us from our Sea Point studios in Cape Town. Judge Ngoepe, thanks so much for your time this morning and welcome to Morning Live.
Good morning to you and to your listeners.
So can we just start off by first just telling us more about the nature of the complaints and also the lengths to which taxpayers had to go in order to resolve some of these problems that they had with the South African Revenue Service?
Well, it's really a variety of complaints that we deal with. The complaints that relate to issues relating to service and procedural matters and so forth. And it's quite a mixed bag of them. As you alluded to earlier, things like complaints about delayed payment of refunds and people complaining about not being attended to properly, and some complaining they are asked time and again to submit the same documents that have repeatedly been asked to submit, and they repeatedly submitted, that sort of thing. And it's quite a variety of those complaints. We do try to mediate firstly, but if we cannot mediate, then we delve into the merits of the complaint and try to resolve them. And really, we go to some length in doing so, because remember, we are privileged to have access into SARS systems in the pursuit of our investigations. We are allowed to do that, and then thereafter we would contact SARS and raise the issues with them and so forth and so on.
Of your investigations and of course also in recommendations and finalizing complaints.
I missed that, the first part.
I was asking just how cooperative SARS has been in terms of following through on the recommendations that your office makes and also the investigations that are brought before you.
There have been, SARS has always been very cooperative. And they allowed us to access some information, and whenever we wanted some information from them, they would. Generally speaking, as I've said, there's been a huge cooperation on the part of SARS, and I suppose it's because they understand our role properly, because our role is not to encourage people from paying tax. We are not there to assist people who don't want to pay tax. We are there to say people must pay tax, and however, they must be treated fairly. And it's important, because when people feel that they are being treated fairly, they are more likely to be tax compliant. So in truth, we have got a common objective with SARS, that is to ensure that revenue is collected as much as it should be, and but that it should be collected in a fair manner.
Now, Judge Ngoepe, speaking of people being treated fairly, you've also come out to say that you would like to see SARS taking, a more proactive role in educating taxpayers about their rights. Talk to us about that and how you would describe the quality of service currently offered by SARS.
Yes, I think people need to be educated a lot more about tax. For example, people need to understand why they pay tax and how they pay and how SARS goes about collecting it. Believe it or not, every single one of us sometimes thinks that we are being individually and specifically targeted by SARS. Everyone will tell you, I think SARS are targeting me. But that is not necessarily so. It's part of the problem is that people don't understand how the machinery works, and that's very important. And not only that, of course, they must at the same time be educated about the rights they have relative to the collection of tax, that they're entitled to do this, they're entitled to raise this issue, and so forth and so on. It's really a total package of education which people must have. It's fundamental that people should understand that the money that I've got to pay as tax is going to be used to benefit society, is going to be used to build clinics, to build roads, and so forth and so on. And when people appreciate all those things, they will be more cooperative. But also, I think my office too has got a responsibility to go about telling people about itself, telling them that if you've got problems with SARS, if you feel you have not been treated well, please come to this office which would assist you. And the beauty of it is that it is, of course, for no payment because it is a state-sponsored institution. Not many people know about this office. So this education about tax has got to be comprehensive, about their obligations, but importantly, about their rights as well.
And, I would love to dwell more on that with you at a later stage. But let's just come to the annual report for the 2018-2019 financial year. 4,822 complaints received, of which 2,043 were actually resolved. So let's just talk about the ones that you were able to resolve and, again, the nature of these complaints that you had to deal with.
Yes, it's a variety of complaints, like I said, about people complaining even about theft identity, about fraud, about sometimes suggesting that this fraud takes place with collaboration of some people within SARS, in which their refunds are paid to wrong people and so on and so forth. So it's quite a number of them. But yes, of course, some of the complaints are found not to be meritorious, and therefore we dismiss them. But a number of them are also found to have some merits. And the good thing is that in the cases in which we found that the complaints were justified, and where we therefore made recommendations to SARS as to how they should be resolved, SARS cooperated with that and implemented about 90-something% of our recommendations, which to us is a very good thing. And I believe that the establishment of this office was a very good idea. And if anybody had any doubts or reservations about its establishment, I think they should be dispelled by now, because you can look at the very number of complaints. They've been increasing every year, and I have reason to believe that they're going to increase even more.
And you talk about the SARS recommendation implementation rate. It's actually sitting at 99%, Judge Ngoepe, which is actually very good, and it speaks to that good cooperation that you alluded to between your office and SARS. But what about the cases that were not resolved? So 2,779 of them. What were some of the challenges that you faced in that regard?
Well, if there were, you see, sometimes I've got a problem because some people don't understand the ambit of our mandate. They bring complaints which they don't properly belong to us, and we advise them so. Then you do find complaints which properly fall within our jurisdiction, and then we deal with them. And either we find that they're justified, or they're not justified. And believe you me, there's quite a large number of them that we do find that they're not justified. And then, of course, we tell the taxpayer that, no, you are wrong, please go home and pay what you've got to pay to Caesar. So it's quite a mixture of them. And we then advise people sometimes as to where they should go if their complaints don't fall within our jurisdiction. So it's a number of complaints, some we uphold, others we don't. It's important that I mention that we act in an impartial manner, in a manner where we say to the taxpayer, you're wrong, and we also say to SARS, you're wrong.
So just to end it off, Judge Ngoepe, you also stated that you would like to see your office become structurally more independent of SARS. Explain to us why you feel that is necessary and how would it benefit taxpayers and, of course, the process.
It is absolutely fundamental. Let's contextualize a bit. You know, we all accept that SARS has got vast powers, drastic powers, in order to collect tax, and we have no quarrel with that. It happens all over the world. The taxpayer, or rather the tax collector, must have vast powers, drastic powers. But there must be an institution which would have to say to SARS, yes, you have got those powers, but you must exercise those powers correctly. Who is better placed to tell SARS so than an institution which is outside SARS, but not only outside of SARS, but also independent of SARS, doesn't depend on SARS for finances, as we do to some extent. And even structurally, sometimes we are dependent on SARS. So when you exercise some kind of oversight over an institution, but you find yourself financially dependent on that very same institution, it's not a satisfactory state of affairs, even if indeed you are independent. And of course, intellectually we are, because SARS will never tell my staff how to resolve a complaint. They're highly qualified and competent tax specialists, but that's fine. But what we need is that the office must be established as an independent institution. And to this end, we have been assisted by a government agency that made a thorough investigation as to what best form should this office take. And we have made submissions to the ministry. After discussing the matter with the Office of the Director General, we enjoyed support from these institutions. The last hurdle is the approval by the minister to have it as an independent institution with its own personality, to be able to be divorced, as it were, from SARS.
Thank you so much for your time this morning. Tax Ombudsman Judge Bernard Ngoepe talking to us about his office's financial report, which was released yesterday. Let's take a break.